I just love it. I just love a cheesy intro. So, welcome everyone back to my 32 different fans, 32 different teams all across the NFL. And I'm super, first of all, this is our first conversation ever in life. So, I'm super excited to chat with you. I feel like in 2025, this is so normal, right? To not talk to somebody and then you talk to them and you're like, hey, so welcome. I'm super excited to have you. And then the other thing is this is recorded May. I don't even know what today is, but it's after. Have you guys had your rookie mini camp?
Yes, we have wrapped up.
Okay. So after rookie mini camp, after the draft, obviously, all of those good things. So just level setting. So if anything crazy pops off and we don't talk about it, it's because we didn't know about it. So just calling that out here. So without further ado, I would love for you to just introduce yourself, let people know whatever it is you want them to know about you, and then tell us how long you've been a Chiefs fan. Oh, last thing. All of your information is going to be in the description. So if anybody wants to find you, whether it's Twitter, whatever, wherever, I will put all of that in the description so they do not have to go very far.
I appreciate that. I do have by default my @name for Twitter, DMacWake316. But yes, wanted to introduce myself. I'm DMac Wakefield. I have been a Chiefs fan for the entirety of my life because it was handed down from my grandfather ultimately. And I'm really excited. You reached out and wanted to talk a little bit about this offseason. Obviously, we have been a team that continues to be one of the most talked about, if not the most talked about franchises. Yep. Obviously, we just had this schedule come out with us having 8 standalone primetime games throughout the regular season. So I'm excited to talk about this team. I think we have some interesting moves to kind of break down, and obviously the season was an up and down one, ultimately one that did not end the way I would want it, but ultimately, it's a new opportunity to create something new. So
I love that. So I'm going to ask you a question that I didn't prepare you for, but I'm sure you can answer it. What is it like to win a Super Bowl? There are a lot of NFL teams and a lot of NFL franchises, and therefore a lot of NFL fans that have never experienced it. So what is it like when your team wins the Super Bowl? What is it like winning? And then what is it like for the off season and just all the stuff? Because your team is a champion until the ball kicks off for the new season.
Yeah, it's funny. I've almost had, because, up until a few years ago at my Chiefs fandom, I didn't really necessarily know what that felt like, obviously, because we had won one 50 years ago before I was born. But
right.
It's interesting because it's a little bit of different experience each time. The 2019 one was so exhilarating because it was something that you always hope for and always hope that you could get to, but you never knew if it was actually ever going to happen. And for it to happen in that moment was awesome. And at that time, I wasn't necessarily living in Kansas City as I do now. So now kind of fast forwarding for these last two, it's a little bit of a different experience because I was able to go to the parade after the second one. And then for this last third one, in addition to going to the parade, I was actually in Vegas during the Super Bowl and being able to be around that environment and my team be able to get that done versus the 49ers. So it's awesome. And as far as offseason is concerned, I will tell you, the thing is, I do a lot of work, not just with the Chiefs, but also for the entirety of the National Football League, as far as, talking about football in general. And the best thing about it is that I don't have to be seen as if I'm insecure or hating when I say something critical about another team, because everybody knows I'm the champion. I'm not trying to, down your team or whatever. It's just what I see as far as my analysis is concerned. So that's
a really good. Okay. I like that. That's actually a really good point. That's a very good point. I didn't think about that. As a Steelers fan, I kind of have the same, where people are like, "You're so privileged. Shut up." And I'm like, "But I can still complain. I can still complain." So I took that. I like it. Okay. So how are you feeling about 2024? The Steelers played the Chiefs in 2024. I feel like my whole thing was if we can get a pass rush and get there, we're going to win this game. Obviously, we could not. But I feel like you guys experienced the highs of highs, winning late games, all of these things happening. Obviously, then you get to the Super Bowl and, Super Bowl happened. So how was 2024 for you overall? And then how was the Super Bowl loss? How did you take that? How long did it take you to kind of go, whatever?
Yeah, it's funny. So you talk about, obviously, the privilege of being a Steelers fan with you guys' history and the success that you guys have had. And obviously, people say about that anytime we complain, but we have a meme on Chiefs Twitter where it's like the entirety of the game, it's like, oh my God, this sucks. And then it's like, oh, we won again. So that was what 2024 kind of was ultimately, obviously, until the last game was concerned. It was always a nail biter. We had super weird games throughout the opening night, which fortunately I was there to see that banner drop. The Isaiah Likely just having a toe out of bounds and then having
against Baltimore.
Exactly. And like obviously the block field goal versus Denver, the fumble versus the Raiders, like all that stuff, et cetera, down the line. So it's always, a nail biter week to week within the regular season. But it's always like, you look up, your number one seed, AFC West champions. Once again, it's one of those things. And even being in the building, obviously, for the AFC Championship game was awesome. It's an exhilarating feeling just to know that you're winning the Super Bowl. And I think there's something about winning a conference championship that's almost even it's I won't say it's better, but it's just really unique compared to even a Super Bowl championship, because it's like, yes, finally we were going back to Super Bowl. We worked all hard and we're able to still get it done as far as the conference was concerned. So but as far as that was concerned, obviously it was awesome leading up to it. It was something where the entirety of the season we're trying to accomplish something that nobody ever has done. You mentioned obviously playing the Steelers on Christmas Day. That was at the end of our 3 games in 10-day stretch. So that was something really unique to the season. So it was like we had a lot of challenges and we're trying to do something nobody has ever done. Even to get back to Super Bowl, obviously, with some manner of history, not to win it was an incredibly big disappointment. But it was weird because we had gone back to back, because we had kind of cemented ourselves as a dynasty. There was almost a level of house money that came with it, to be honest with you. So,
that's
maybe because it was a blowout. I'll tell you, like at halftime, I was like, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. So we're going to lose this and we're on to the offseason and see what happens next. So honestly, it was quick as far as kind of hey, man, it is what it is. You got destroyed on the biggest stage. You got to get back to work and seeing what you can change to get better. So I would say, even probably because it wasn't a close game, that was a nail biter that we ended up losing. Maybe it helped me get over it even quicker, to be honest with
I do agree. I always say, like, if you're going to beat me, just blow it out. Just blow me out. Like, don't even give me a chance, because then I can pick at everything. But whenever I lose, like Texas loses in like the semifinals, right? And we lose, and I instantly am like, okay, right before half. Well, what about the fumble? And then and now I can nitpick every little thing. And I'm like, just blow me out next time. Then I don't have to worry about this crap. So I hear you. I also think you said something very interesting, is winning the division, like being the AFC champs. Do you think it's because there's that break? Like, do you think it's kind of like you play all season and then you win, and then now you get a 2-week break, but you get to celebrate like being the kings of like an entire division for a solid 2 weeks. So do you think that impacts it?
That's definitely a piece of it. And I think it's also because when you talk football, you there's a certain level of kind of, I won't even say animosity, but a amount of trash talk between the people that you're in a conference with. And we have had these battles on a consistent basis with the Ravens and the Bills, specifically in the time frame in which the Chiefs have been at the top of the AFC. And so to be able to continue to conquer those teams for what they are, even then kind of adds a little bit extra to it from that standpoint too. So I think it's a combination of definitely the break and the fact of who you're actually beating on the way to do that. I think does play a role in it.
Okay. What song would you use to describe your 2024 season?
So there are a bunch of different ways to go with this song. Okay. I ultimately chose In the End by Linkin Park, which is probably obscure, but it's like,
I like it.
We have worked so hard and got ourselves into this position to be able to finally get to, make history with the 3-peat, and it just didn't matter enough. It just didn't. So that was the song that first came to mind when you initially asked that question. But that's a really unique question. I like that.
I love it. And honestly, you will be, I can't say what, because I don't know how this is going to release, so I don't want to spoil it for anybody. I believe you're the second, if not the third person to use that song. So and that's so I like come up with these questions just like in my brain. I'm like, I'm just gonna ask, and always the questions that I just throw in there is just like, I'll throw it in there. Always the ones that are like so fun. We'll get to one with like the player swap, kind of the same thing. It's like just different. Like, let's think about this differently. Like, I don't know. We can all relate to music, even if you're not like a music person. You've heard some songs, so I love that. So season ends, Super Bowl's over. Get demolished, whatever you want to say it was. Everybody knows at this point you have to fix this offensive line. Like, there's no ands, ifs, or buts. Everybody's aware of that. How did you feel when the offseason started? Were you like, okay, free agency, who are we going to get on this offensive line? Like, how are you feeling when offseason hit?
Yeah, it's funny. The offseason, this will play into a few of the questions that you got later on. I mean, it is really centered around the offensive line and everything that goes into it. We had some significant free agents on the defensive side of the ball. Nick Bolton, who we ended up bringing back, Justin Reid, of course, who ended up moving on. But it really just was like, hey, we saw in the Super Bowl, we had no ability to protect Patrick Mahomes. And we had been there before, obviously in the Tampa Bay Super Bowl and what happened there. But this time we have to figure out a way back from that standpoint. And I think that one part of it is that we're in a better position than we were after that Tampa Bay Super Bowl. And the Tampa Bay Super Bowl, afterwards, we had to cut Eric Fisher. We had to move on from Mitchell Schwartz because of the injuries that Eric Fisher had, and Mitchell Schwartz was getting up there as far as that was concerned. The interior offensive line was really up in the air in that standpoint. This year, at least, we know what the right side of the offensive line is going to look like because we have Creed, we have Trey, we have Juwan Taylor here. And now it's like, all right, what are we going to do with the left side? So initially, me going into it, I had thought that we were going to stick with Kingsley and give him another shot at left tackle with an offseason to continue to prepare. I thought that the hook for Andy Reid and Andy Heck was a little bit quick as far as that was concerned. Obviously, after the Trey Hendrickson issues that he had versus the Bengals, I thought that they should have stuck with him, continued to allow him to grow. If they were going to give him the job initially, they decided to move him over to left guard and obviously trade Joe Thuney instead. And so that was just a path that I wasn't expecting. And this also kind of played into at the start of the playoffs because we had tried DJ Humphries. That didn't necessarily work out. I thought that maybe we should have kept Joe Thuney at left guard and then went back to DJ Humphries because I just didn't love the idea of making two positions worse. Of course, they chose not to. And
that's a good point.
So, and that's just one of those things. It's like, hey, it's a sliding doors moment. You kind of got to move on from it. But obviously, the path they chose to go was a little bit different than the path that, ultimately I would have looked at. But obviously, they decided to move Kingsley over to left guard, bring in a new left tackle or maybe two, obviously, in the free agency and draft.
Yeah. Is there – so I feel like I'm trying to think of how I'm going to ask this question because I think when you talk to a fan who has experience winning the Super Bowl and also experience losing a Super Bowl, because I'm the same. Like I experienced the Steelers win too, and I also experienced us going and losing. I think there's like this weird humbleness. Humbleness might not be the word, but there's this weird thing where you go, okay, I know that wasn't good. And we're going to fix this. And I'm going to trust that you're going to fix it. And I'm not going to complain as much, but I still have thoughts, but I'm not going to complain as much as I would if we haven't already won a Super Bowl. And like, do you feel that way where you're kind of like, because I kind of heard you just describe that where you're like, I would have done that, but hey, it is what it is. Are you saying that because it's kind of like, I trust that they'll kind of figure it out, but I still have thoughts about what I think they should do?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where when you have a proven level of success over many years, it's like, all right, but I trust you guys to make the decision. I may disagree with the decision and me on the outside looking in of what I see, but I just trust that it's going to work out. And ultimately, the reality situation is every move isn't going to work out. That's just how it works, whether it's a free agent or, an offseason move or a free agency move or a front office bringing a guy in, acquisition, whatever. It's not always going to work out. You just got to have a higher hit rate than the rest of the National Football League to build the right team. And ultimately, that's what this front office with Brett Veach and Andy Reid have been able to do on a consistent basis. So I trust them to do that. And so even though I disagreed with their, moving a Joe Thuney to left tackle, and maybe I ended up getting that right, who knows? Obviously, it's a hypothetical. Yeah. Ultimately, what they chose to do in this offseason, move Luke Kingsley over, deciding to bring in Jalen Moore and obviously drafting Josh Simmons, maybe that pathway ultimately leads to that position being more locked down than it would have otherwise. So like you said, it's because we've gone to the highest of peaks and we've also lost at the highest level as well. It's like, you guys have proven it more times than not. So I'm going to trust you to get it done, even if maybe I disagree.
That's fair. I love it. So let's talk about the draft. How did you feel about the draft? What was like your favorite pick where you were like, yes, more of that? And then what was the pick where you were like, I don't know what this is about, but okay, like we'll see.
Yeah. So it's weird. I have to bring up three picks because I think it's important in the context of what we're talking about the offensive line. My favorite pick of the entirety of the draft would be Jalen Williams, our fourth round wide receiver, because I think that he fits effectively what we kind of need with Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and Hollywood Brown.
I forgot you guys have Worthy.
Yeah, and Juju as well, and kind of what they all fit together. He can do some of the things that Rashee Rice brought to us his rookie year, being a power slot and being able to operate there. He can also go outside and play the X role that he really specialized in college. So I'm really interested to see how they continue to develop him. So that was a pick that I thought especially had value that I really loved from that perspective. Okay. The interesting pick that I'll point out first is Josh Simmons. And Josh Simmons got a lot of talk, obviously, for the injury question marks and obviously his patella repair. The reality situation is when we were evaluating these things, and we do this on Tell the Truth and Kingdom Cast, his tape was the best of any tackle as far as the class was concerned. So you're talking about, do I trust the Chiefs to do the right medical evaluations? And to what we just talked about, yes, I think that they get these things more right or right more often than not. So it was kind of like, hey, I'm just going to trust you guys. I love what I saw on tape. If this guy's healthy, then I think that he has the ability to be a top 10, top 5 left tackle in the league to protect Mahomes' blind side for the next decade. So I'm cool with that. It's just obviously the question mark that comes with it. But I will say the other more interesting pick that maybe we'll talk about a little bit less is Ashton Delonte, who was the edge out of Louisville that we took at the top of the 3rd round. And the reason why he's kind of interesting is he plays a lot like George Karlaftis. I think he's got maybe a little bit different juice than George Karlaftis, a little bit more polished of a pass rush plan than George Karlaftis. But he has the same level of motor. He does really set the edge. He really does have a great ability to defend the run as well. So I find it interesting now that George Karlaftis is coming up on the standpoint of we picked up his 5th-year contract. Obviously, it's getting to the end of the line of where his team control is concerned. What does that mean? Are we just trying to add to him? Obviously, I think our edge room could use some help from that standpoint. So I'm happy to bring him in as far as the player is concerned. But what does that really mean to George Karlaftis? That was the one that kind of had me raising my eyebrow as far as that was concerned.
Okay. I would be remiss not to ask you the Taylor Swift question. Mm-hmm. How is it? Is it like how is it being in the city? Because you said you lived there, knowing or being at a game, knowing she's going to be at a game. Like, is it because I've been to plenty of games before? You care about who's there, and once you know they're there, you kind of move on and keep it moving. But is it like that? Is it like, because TV makes you feel like everyone's staring at her, and it's like it's really not like that. Mm-hmm. But I would love to know, like, your thoughts. How is it with her being there? Do you notice a difference in vibe just being a fan? Or does everybody just stop and stare and see what she's doing, every movement she makes?
Yeah, so the funny thing is I have had 2 close encounters, one being at Arrowhead and then the other one kind of just being out about in Kansas City. And this was just her kind of going to a restaurant or whatever, and it happened to be around that time. And then the other one was at Arrowhead when she was going up to a suite. To be honest with you, I don't notice anything different about the games because ultimately Chiefs fans have always been Chiefs fans. We tailgate, get drunk, we make barbecue, you eat it in the parking lot, we go inside, and we get as loud as anybody in the National Football League or any outdoor stadium ever has, and we cheer on the Chiefs. So that I don't think it's changed much as far as the vibe is concerned. I will say this. The fact that the entirety of the other, I won't say the entirety, but a lot of other NFL fans are either A, annoyed by the fact that Taylor Swift is there, or B, think the NFL is rigging it for us because Taylor Swift is there, is personally for me very funny because I'm a petty person. So I enjoy it a lot because I like to make fun of how stupid people like to be.
I always go back and forth. Like, do I think the NFL is rigging is kind of strong, but do I think that certain teams and certain players get special treatment? Yeah, because you're supposed to. That's the level of superstar you get. Like, now, it is what it is. But I like anytime any more fans are being drawn to something, I like hearing their perspective on what they think is happening. Because it's like, this train isn't going to stop. Like, it doesn't matter who shows up to the game. Like, the train is going to be the train. So, have you ever visited Texas?
I have. I've been to Dallas. So I have an uncle that lives in Dallas.
Have you eaten barbecue in Texas?
I have. I've eaten barbecue in Dallas, and I've eaten barbecue in Austin as well.
Do you prefer Kansas barbecue or Texas barbecue?
So I prefer Missouri barbecue, and I know you probably just said Kansas because it's Kansas City, but there is a difference. And
I'm here for you. I've talked to somebody that lives in Nashville and Memphis, and they tell me, dang it, I can't think of what he said something very specific. Basically, he liked the barbecue in Memphis, but not the barbecue in Tennessee, I think is what he said. And I was like, okay, so that's a thing.
It is different that we make the counter about, but yes, absolutely. Okay. I do like, but I when I went down to Austin, I enjoyed the barbecue, loved Dallas barbecue. I have no issues with Texas barbecue one bit.
So wait, yours is the same then. So you like Missouri's barbecue, not as better than you do Kansas City's barbecue.
Yes. Well, that's because I am somebody that also has, I have families from St. Louis and stuff. So like St. Louis, Kansas City barbecue, I love equally personally. That's just the way I look at it. Now, obviously, a lot of Chiefs fans would disagree with me. That's fine. Obviously.
Okay. No, listen.
Yeah.
Food.
But no, I like.
Yeah. Okay. everybody has their own like thing, way of doing it. So that's why I always ask. Like, I'm just kind of curious to see where everybody stands. Everyone's different. So, and then somebody told me Memphis barbecue. And so then I was like, well, I need to go try the Memphis barbecue and not the Nashville barbecue. I will be honest. The Memphis barbecue is a little sweeter, I feel like. So it does have a little different flavor. Anyways, so my other question that I wanted to ask you then is, it's okay, draft happens, all the things are going on. What are now your expectations? You're kind of seeing your team. You've now experienced a rookie mini camp. I'm one of those people that feels like if you really need these rookies to come in and make an impact, like something is going wrong. But a player or two, I understand. How are you feeling now that that is over and you're really being able to kind of assess a bigger picture of what's going on and how you're feeling?
Yeah, I think that as far as the rookie, kind of aspect of it is concerned, I agree with you. Like rookies generally in the NFL are things that are picked, for that 3 to 4 year window, 5 year window of what they're going to be on your rookie contract. And you get more than that. Obviously, that's great. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a year one thing. And specifically in the way in which we have to operate because of Patrick Mahomes' contract, because Chris Jones' contract, because now Creed and these guys are getting paid. There is a level of we need to continue to plan 2 to 3 years out because of the expectations that we have every year to be a championship caliber team. Because we have Patrick Mahomes, we are in a title window every single year. And that's not like, I don't look at it as an arrogant thing. And I also don't look at it as bad. It is
what it is.
It is an expectation of having the best player in the sport in my
period. Period.
And I love the fact that this front office's coaching staff also approaches it that way as well, because that is not always how sports owners or front offices do approach things as well. And so I'm happy for that. But yeah, I think that the rookies that we got, because of where we set ourselves up in free agency, and Brett Veach does a good job of being able to go into the draft and understand that this team can play a game before any of these rookies ever come in, but also understanding of where we can best put these guys in to be successful. So if Josh Simmons is healthy enough to play week 1, then that's cool. He can be our left tackle or at least compete for that job with Jalen Moore. If not, then it's okay. We're covered as far as that is concerned. I think Omar Norman-Lott, our second round pick, can come in and give us rotational defensive pass rush snaps, which I think we need. Same thing for Ashton. I talked about Jalen's role. Brashard Smith is somebody that can be a really interesting piece. We'll see how we use him as things go on. So these rookies are obviously extremely excited when you get new guys on the team and they're young and everybody's really excited for the draft time, and you do a lot of work leading up to it to understand what prospects you want your team to pick. But ultimately, I think that this team has a championship caliber aspect about it. And I thought that before he went into the draft, and obviously these rookies only further solidify that.
Yeah. I'm asking you a ton of questions I did not prepare you for, but I know you can handle it.
It's okay.
If you could think of the second thing that Kansas City needs to work on, obviously offensive line, we all know. What is something else that you would say that you feel like Kansas City needs to improve on this year?
Yeah. So I think that, you talk about, obviously, going back a few questions, is talking about the Super Bowl and that experience and being like, okay, well, you get blown out. Well, it's kind of almost too simple to talk about what happened. The offensive line failed, and in my opinion, the defensive line failed. And I say this from the standpoint, the defense in general did a good job. I thought that they were able to limit Saquon Barkley. They made it very difficult on Jalen Hurts in the offense, and the Jalen Hurts in the offense still had a good day, but it wasn't obviously the day that the defense had for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
And so ultimately, they beat our offensive line with 4 pass rushers, and that set up everything for their defense. We had to overextend with our defense, specifically by blitzing, which Steve Spagnuolo is known for, but he wants to pick and choose more spots because our 4-man pass rush wasn't as good. And it's really about getting Chris Jones really more, help as far as that's concerned. Yeah. So it goes into it a little bit more. So outside of obviously what we saw as far as the offensive line is concerned, and general health for our weapons because of all the people that we ended up losing, the defensive line and that pass rush of helping Chris Jones is the biggest thing. I think you could see some help from George Karlaftis getting even better. Felix Anduke-Uzomah is somebody that we took 2 years ago in the first round. If he can take a leap, that would be huge. Charles Omenihu was coming off of a major ACL injury that he suffered at the end of the 23 season. And obviously he was working to come back as far as that was concerned. I don't think he was ever fully healthy in that aspect. If he can get back to where he was in that 2023 season before he got hurt, then I think that will help significantly. I mentioned obviously Omar and Ashton, brought in Jerry Tillery to give us some pass rush snaps as well. So if we can supercharge that 4-man pass rush to be really effective, that opens everything up for Steve Spagnuolo and what he wants to do on the defensive scheme.
Okay. Is it Super Bowl or bust?
Yeah, I mean it is.
Okay.
You got Patrick Mahomes. That's
Okay.
just the reality.
No, I think that's
you can't
fair.
run from him. You can't run from his expectations. You got to embrace him. And ultimately, I've said this, my entire life as a Chiefs fan. I think everybody's entire life as a sports fan. You root to have a team that you feel like is like we can win the Super Bowl or win the championship every single year. And I think you should embrace that and not run away from it.
I love it. I love it. What is an underrated or overlooked player or position group that you think the Chiefs have? Because let's be honest, everybody talks about Patrick Mahomes, everybody talks about Travis Kelce, and everybody talks about the lack of offensive line. Chris Jones, depending on who is talking. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but most times it's only about that offense. Is there any, like, where's something that you're like, man, they don't ever talk about our such and such? Like, it's like...
Yeah. So I'm going to very quickly mention Trent McDuffie. I'm going to mention him because I don't think people realize how much he does and how much he allows Steve Spagnuolo to do for our defensive scheme because of his inside out versatility, because he is excellent in zone, because he's excellent in man coverage, because he has the ability to blitz, because he has the ability to defend the run. Steve Spagnuolo can use him as such an amazing chess piece. And I think our free agency tells you a little bit about what we want to do with him this year. Having Christian Fulton come in to add to hopefully a healthy Jalen Watson as well. We went out and drafted one of my favorite corners and drafted Noah Williams out of Cal, who has incredible ball skills. So those guys are more outside cornerbacks. So allowing Trent McDuffie to really be in the nickel and being that joker kind of position to really have an impact on the game on a consistent basis. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with him. But the one guy I'll say that it didn't get a lot talked about last year. He was a rookie. He was a 4th-round pick for us, kind of flew under the radar. Jaden Hicks, who was one of the better safeties in the draft for me last year, he and his ability that he brings to the table was really impressive. And the key thing is Steve Spagnuolo doesn't necessarily want to give a lot to rookies because our defense asks a lot, specifically of secondary players, and Jaden Hicks being a safety guy. The fact that early on in the season, he was getting some really key down snaps and his role continued to grow as the season went on is indicative, in my opinion, of what Steve Spagnuolo really believes he can be.
Yep.
We allowed Justin Reid to move on because we believe in Jaden Hicks as that good of a safety. I think he really does have the upside of being maybe all pros, maybe a little bit too high, but certainly a Pro Bowl player. I truly do believe he has
call.
And so I think that he's going to take some people by surprise because he plays with such physicality, has really good ball skills. He has the instincts for the position as well. And he showed some really good tape for us in that next year. So I think he's a guy that's going to be under talked about moving forward. And then we're going to get midway through the year and people are going to be like, who's this kid 21 that's making all the plays all over the place? I think he's going to make some waves as far as our season is concerned when people talk about the Chiefs defense occasionally.
I like it. Yeah, occasionally, right? Because it's kind of one of those things where we're like, Patrick Mahomes is so great. Look at Travis Kelce. This is so great. This is so good. Oh, and their defense, it's top 15. It's okay. And you're like, who's on it? Like, what?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What? So my team's out here fighting for their lives, and you just suddenly are like, oh, and their defense. Like who are these guys? So anyways, that's interesting. And one thing I've learned is as I mature as a football watcher, and even in college, because I'm a college and NFL type of woman, like I know what's happening in both, is realizing the guy that comes in year one matters. If he can get on the field year one, aka Colin Simmons, fantastic, cool, go do the thing. But really, like year 2, 3, sometimes even 4, depending on who the player is really where you start to see them pop or make their move or kind of make their imprint on the team. And that has been so fun for me to witness is, yeah, cool. We got these guys, but man, remember that sophomore? Like, remember that one guy that we were super excited about? It's like, now it's their time. And so it's similar to what you just said. It's like, yeah, we got him. No one's talking about him now, but like, this is like, he's about to be ready. Yeah. It's about to go down. Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned obviously the college aspect of it. And this is something that I talked about a lot for when we picked Xavier Worthy in the first round. The fact that Worthy was able to come in as a freshman at Texas and make the impact he did on a consistent basis, I was like, okay, he's not, everybody was like, oh, he's just the speed guy. He's John Ross. I'm like, nah, y'all are paying attention to the 4.21 at the combine. And I understand why. If you watch what this kid has continued to do throughout his collegiate career, you understand that there's a lot more to what his game brings to the table. And ultimately, throughout year one for him, there was a progression. Early on, He was trying to find his way. We couldn't necessarily get everybody on the field because Hollywood was missing all the games. Obviously, we had Rashee Rice go down, but you just saw him getting better and better and better, and his usage continued to increase. And I know everybody's going to be like, it's garbage time. It doesn't really count. But the end of the Super Bowl and the game and the plays that he was still able to make, it's still impressive. And it's still things that are going to be translatable. Yeah, it is absolute experience.
Yes.
And these are the things, even though we have had a draft class, a true draft class specifically, that have never experienced not getting to the Super Bowl. But just even if it is losing, next time that they have to go to the Super Bowl, they know what it is. They don't have to act like, oh man, all wide-eyed. We don't know what's happening. Everybody understands what is through this process.
That's a good point.
What it takes to get through the season and get there. So that's a really big thing. But I'm really excited for Xavier Worthy in year 2. The same way I'm extremely excited for Rashee Rice in year 3 because of what the progression simply was from him being his rookie year, in which he was really good for us, specifically down the stretch in the playoffs to win that Super Bowl. And then for where he came back in year 2 before he got hurt, he was one of the best wide receivers in football. So I just want those guys to stay healthy at the end of the day.
Yeah. The one thing I always say too about Worthy is he was on the upswing of Texas coming back, and he not only stayed loyal, but he stayed committed to Texas when he didn't have to. And players that know what the struggle is like when you're not very good to then like literally working to be good. It's like being a first year starter. It's like there's certain things I cannot measure that it just helps you. And Worthy does all those things. I like Worthy, and everyone's like, yeah, but can he catch? I'm like, he can catch. Like, I mean, I don't understand why, like, we think he's just fast and can't catch. Like, he can catch. But the one thing I said about Worthy is, once you see him start talking trash on the field, just know that you got it. Like once you kind of see him, doing the little extra and like doing, it's like, that's the Worthy you want. And I saw him like towards the end of the season, I saw him kind of be like expecting to score touchdowns and expecting to do certain things. And so that's the Worthy that you want. So kudos to him. I'm not gonna lie, I was pissed when he went to the Chiefs because who's happy when a former like Super Bowl champion gets like good players. But I'm happy he's there. Good for him. I'm happy he's there. He'll be great for a long time, I think.
Trading with us. I appreciate them always.
Like Buffalo, like what? Like what? Like everyone's like, why? So anyways, like we're all in this together except for you, apparently, Buffalo. Like, and we're cheering for you, and then you keep doing things to us, and we're like, come on, bro, like come on.
He only had like 120. He only had like 120 yards on them in the AFC Championship game,
and that was the second year in a row, right? Because I think they did something like that the year before.
We had jumped them for Trip McDuffie the year before, and ultimately in 2017 we had traded with them for the Patrick Mahomes pick as well.
Like, come on, Buffalo. Like, come on. Like, oh my God. Anyways, let's leave. Shout out to Buffalo. And obviously, Bills Mafia is fantastic as far as just like being supportive and all the things. Shout out to Bills Mafia. Buffalo's an organization. Guys, let's stop trading with the Chiefs. I'm just saying. Anyways. Okay, so what is a hot take that you have that most fans would be like, did he really just say that?
Yeah. Okay. I think that my hot take coming into the season that's probably going to be a little bit unpopular is that I still believe in Isaiah Pacheco as a top 15 running back in this league.
Okay.
I think that a lot of Chiefs fans were really frustrated with the run game last year, understandably so, because there was a lack of explosiveness to it, and then as the year kind of went on, then it was very difficult for us to stay efficient. And as we went into the playoffs and we moved Joe Tooney over, then it really took a big hit. So I think that the way in which this run design needs to evolve, I think will be in a positive manner. But ultimately, I think Isaiah Pacheco still can be a really good back in this league because he was his first 2 years. The fact that last year he dealt with the injury, tried to come back, and I think probably came back a little bit too quickly. And obviously Kareem Hunt came back off the couch, and God bless Kareem Hunt, gave us everything that he had to try and get us through that season. I think people are down on Isaiah Pacheco, and I still think Rashard Smith can add to this running back room in addition to Elijah Mitchell. But ultimately, I do really believe that Isaiah Pacheco can still be a good back in this league.
I love it. Okay. Stick to your until the answer is like hell no. Why not? Like, sure. I love it. If you were GM for a day, what would be the very first move that you'd make?
Yes. And so this is where obviously us recording in May and whenever this may come out does play into a factor. But my first move, and it's really two moves, it's going to be extend Trey Smith and Trey McDuffie. Trey Smith is currently on the franchise tag, and I believe we have until July 15th to extend him as far
To
as
get
that's
him.
concerned.
Okay.
I think that we will get that deal done, and I think it should be done. They have chosen that, by moving on from Joe Tooney, they were like, okay, this is going to be the two interior players that we're going to pay. I think Trey Smith is a top, like 5 right guard in the game and one of the best in the game as far as guards in general. Him and Creed, are a really good duo and obviously the best friends as far as that's concerned. Both of them want to be in Kansas City. And so I think that he brings a physicality and a nastiness to our offensive line that every offensive line really needs, a tone setter as far as that's concerned. So I want to keep him around. And the next one is Trip McDuffie for the reasons that I talked about earlier and how key he is to the defense. I think that he truly is a top 5 corner in this game. I think he is excellent as a young, playmaker in that standpoint on the secondary. So I want to keep both of those guys around for a long time.
Okay. I love that. And I can respect that. And you know what? Any fan that talks about offensive line and they want to keep those guys is after my own heart, because I don't think those guys get enough attention, enough praise, enough credit, enough talked about, enough shows made about them, enough anything. Like, you rarely ever see a show spend 30 minutes breaking down an offensive line. Like, it just doesn't happen. They're like, oh yeah, and the guard pulled and it looked great. And you're like, what? Like,
see what
who gave the call? Yeah, like, who gave the call? How did he even know to give the call? Who did he talk? Like, and the quarterback trusted his call. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think that we talk about the dynamics of an offensive line ever. And so anybody that says anything about them, I'm like, yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So,
it should be mentioned that, since we drafted him in 2021, Creed Humphrey has been a top 2-3 center in the National Football League for a team that's consistently going to Super Bowls and winning them. And being the centerpiece of that offensive line, staying in front of Patrick Mahomes. Like, that's something that should be talked about more.
Period.
But he should get that credit for doing it.
It's crazy. And I'm also the woman that will argue with somebody that my left tackle is the most important position on a field, mainly just because I like to see what people say. And no one's ever come out and been like, you're wrong. Everyone's just kind of like, I don't know. Because I always say I would take a stellar left tackle over a quarterback that's like really average. When I say average, I mean, just like, give me a solid game manager, but give me a left tackle that's not letting anyone get around him, through him, past him, anything. And people are kind of like, okay,
Absolutely. I mean, offensive line is such a weak link system. If you know that every time that you started, and we had this in a different manner, we had it flipped for the right side. If you know that every time that the quarterback is going to read the defense and he is setting the protections, he can leave one tackle on an island every single time. That is a massive advantage to being able to limit what a defense can attack you with as far as a pass rush is concerned. We had it with Mitchell Schwartz on the right side of the offensive line for so many years, and obviously for that first Super Bowl, it just allows you to do everything off of that. That's really key, and that's what we're now chasing by drafting Josh Simmons in the first round.
Yeah. And like, I'm kind of nerding out about this, and I think that sometimes I've realized when people assess football, they don't think about the dynamics that happen after the ball gets hiked. Like, I feel like we're always like, oh yeah, and then we're just going to hand it off. We're just going, and I'm like, but what if you actually physically cannot? Like, what if the guy is already there and you're about to hand it off? Like, what if you have TJ Watt lined up against a left tackle who is absolutely atrocious? You're not even handing the ball off. It doesn't even matter, So, and then anyway, so I just don't think people think further than, they don't think about the actual plays. So anyways, I mean, I get it. Take the quarterback. Everybody wants to take the quarterback, but I don't know about, I'm like, give me a solid left tackle. If I can get a solid center, give me those guys any day of the week. But that's just my personal opinion.
No, I don't blame you one bit for that. Take it. Look, these guys are getting paid 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollars a year. Right. We have to make sure we protect those investments.
Period. Yes. And they're usually the quietest. They usually don't get in trouble. I mean, some do, but like most of the time, those are the steady guys. They're consistent guys. Like, give me those guys. I trust them with my 25, 30 million. Like, they're going to take care of it. Mm-hmm. But awesome. So the next part of this is like the overtime round. And so I tried to make this like round robin or what is the word where it's like you can rapid fire? That's a good word. And so we'll just get started. There's 4 questions. It was supposed to be 4 questions for like moving the ball in overtime, trying to get a touchdown. And then every time I say it, it's so cheesy, but that's okay. I still love it nonetheless. So which division rival do you love to hate the most and why?
It's easily the Raiders. The reason why is because they're just so inept, and I like laughing at them. But their fans are so loud, and they're so wrong every time. So it's always fun to make fun of them. And really, the entirety of their life, they've kind of been like the punching bag. Like obviously, the Broncos had their period kind of early 2010s in which they were really good and got Peyton Manning. The Chargers have been fairly steady throughout the entirety of the their time in the National Football League, at least in my lifetime, as far as that's concerned. But yeah, the Raiders are just fun to make fun of, and it's so fun. We do things like the little ring around the rosy when we did to them at that other season. Yeah, man, they go and step on the logo before we go and beat them 48-3 or whatever it was. So like, it's just fun to make fun of the Raiders because they're dumb.
Okay.
And they act like they aren't.
I got it. Okay. If you could change one thing about your franchise, what would it be? So you can do ownership, stadiums, uniforms, really anything.
So it's very funny. There is a stadium battle that is going on between the state of Kansas and the state of Missouri right now. And so
interesting.
Yes. So as a result, I'm going to opt out of that entirely. And instead, I'm going to go to something that I have been advocating for years now, which is a black alternate uniform. And I think the Chiefs have one of the best uniform combinations in the National Football League. You know, the white and the red is just very clean, very classic look as far as that's concerned. But I would really like just a black helmet, some red outlines as far as that's concerned, and just have kind of just that to just throw it in. It doesn't have to be something often. I don't want it to be often. I am still a uniform traditionalist, but I do think that a really alternate jersey could be great. And the NFL announced the new kind of Rivals series that they're going to have new uniforms coming out for each teams. And I think ours comes like in 2 years or whatever. So I'm crossing my fingers that it's going to end up being a black alternate that I think would be really cool to add to our rotation.
Would you do a stripe on the pants, or would you keep them all black? Where would the stripe come?
I would have the regular kind of black pants with a red stripe on the sides.
Okay. Interesting. And then the white and red Chiefs logo like on the pants, on the top pants. Okay. I think that would look nice with like a black matte helmet. With the logo.
Black would just and you could do like the regular white, black, and red logo, or you could just do an all red logo, which I think also would look sweet too. So I could see whichever way they want to go with it, but I am crossing my fingers that that'll be an addition to our rotation as well. I'm looking forward to it.
I like that. So the next question is, if you could swap one person from your team with one from your rival, who would it be and why? And honestly, a lot of people are just saying names in their division. So you can, if it's somebody in your division that you'd want to player swap, you can do that too. Yeah,
well, I will keep it in the division. And so I feel bad for saying this, but I'm going to not choose one of my better players. Of course, I'm going to choose one of the worst ones. But I'm going to sacrifice.
It just has to be a starter.
Yeah, so I'll sacrifice Mike Dana, who is a nice early down edge rushing, kind of defending type of guy. And is really good against the run, and we gave him a nice chunk of change as far as that's concerned. But I'm going to swap for Max Crosby, and I'm going to swap for Max Crosby because Max Crosby is one of the best edges in the National Football League. He is awesome versus the run. He's awesome versus the pass. He has this little friendly rivalry with Mahomes, but they're also kind of really good friends. And he always asks about what it's like playing for Andy Reid. And he's just one of those guys. A, his story is awesome, but B, he is somebody that you can tell you want on your team, and he's somebody that's a leader, and he works his butt off and wants to be able to make a difference on a consistent basis. And I think, again, to what I had talked about earlier, he would be a major addition to be able to rush next to Chris Jones. That would be a duo that you could dream of as far as that's concerned. So
I don't disagree with that. That is 100% accurate. And then my last question is, describe your team's fan base in 3 words.
I would just say probably best NFL fans. Like we had set the decibel record for 142, for outdoor stadiums because we had, been able to bench Tom Brady on Thursday or a Monday Night Football game a few years ago. And that's one of the highlights as being a Chiefs fan, because we were just so loud. It made it difficult. And this goes back even before I was born, when John Elway was kind of backed up on his own end zone, and he had to, ask the refs to tell everybody to quiet down because it was too loud. And because it was just, so it's just, we have always been an incredibly passionate fan base that has cared for this team, that has supported this team, that continues to have sellouts, continues to be the loudest, continues to show up for them. And we have a kind of unique way about us as far as the tailgating is concerned. But it's best NFL fans would be the best way to describe it.
I love it. I love that. Those are all the questions that I have for you. Do you watch college football?
I do.
Are you as big of a fan? Do you have a team?
I'm a Mizzou fan.
Okay.
Missouri,
I'm sorry, about that. I'm very sorry about that.
Look, man,
it's okay.
Pulling it around. We're pulling it around. We're trying. We're pulling it around.
It's okay. Things change sometimes. It's okay.
It's just so funny that you're a Texas fan, because I do a podcast with the Texas fan as well. But I'm a Mizzou fan. I do enjoy.
What kind of Texas fan is he? We're gonna be world beaters, or is he like a realistic Texas?
No, he's a realistic fan. He's very measured about his takes as far as that's concerned. Obviously, he thought that you guys had a good shot at winning it all this year, but no, he's pretty measured about his takes. He's not too crazy.
Awesome. Okay, there's levels of us, and some of them I'm like, no, I know they're extreme. I don't. So I just and I get it, right? Every fan base has them. You have your very extreme positive, you have a very extreme negative. I like the ones that can just give me the balls and strikes. Like, yes, that was good. Yes, this sucked. Like, just call it down the middle, please. It keeps it easier.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you chatting with me. And like I said, just responding to me off of a random message of me being like, hey, would you like to do this with me? So thank you. It's nice to talk to fans, not only to talk to fans just in general, but just to talk to people that are like really passionate about their teams. Because one thing I've learned about the NFL fan base is NFL fans are so focused on like the strategic moves their teams are making, because we have to be, because we know it's a business. And we know we can't just get as many players in and then like it's like these are the players and you move them and you let a couple go, then you bring a couple in, and it's very like tight quarters. And I appreciate that NFL fans realize that, and we talk like it, we're like, if I let them go, who am I bringing in, so we got to keep them. So anyway, so I appreciate you and all of those different things. I always like to end on my guests. So whatever you want to say, we'll end with you. And then, like I said, at the very beginning of this, all of your information will be in the description section. So if anybody is curious about where to find you, all of your other shows and stuff that you did, yes, I cheated and I, watched some of them and all the things. So I will leave those for other people to see them as well.
Well, I truly do appreciate that. But no, I thank you again for having me on. It was a lot of fun to talk about this. And I do love doing kind of those, preview shows to talk about this and giving a little bit more insight and sometimes some things for people to pay attention to, like a Jaden Hicks shout out. We're talking more about that offensive line. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'll talk about a little bit, obviously, like I said, DMAC Wake 316 at Twitter. I continue to have our Red Friday spaces every single Friday talking Chiefs football. In addition, I am a part of Kingdom Cast on YouTube, Twitter. You can find us on everywhere that you have. We also have playback.tv/KingdomCast as well. We have our Tell the Truth podcast every single Tuesday night. And then we also have, I'll occasionally do a Stay Scheming episode where I talk about some X's and O's as well for things that I think were interesting. And I'll be doing some Patrick Mahomes film review as we get into the offseason in previewing for 2025 as well. And then the last thing is Daily Bread Network on YouTube. A part of our kind of betting space as far as that's concerned. I also do my max marquee matchups as well every single week, previewing whatever I think is the best matchup that week in the season. So definitely be on the lookout for that too.
I love that. So busy, and you grace me with your presence. I will forever be grateful. Thank you for that. Thank you for talking to me. And I appreciate solid people in this space. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. It means a lot that you wanted to ask me on, and it was awesome. I loved the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you.